The River Knows. Chapter 1, The Blue Book. It was a small town. The town had one long street and a few shops. The street was quiet at night. A few lights were on. The rain was light. The rain made the street shine. People slept. Only the clock in the church said the time. Mark Lane was a detective. He had a small office near the river. Mark was not young. He had gray hair and slow hands. He liked to walk in the morning. He liked to drink strong tea. He liked small things that others forgot. At 3 in the morning, Mark woke to the sound of his phone. A voice said, "Detective Lane. This is Lucy from number 9. Please come. My neighbor is not at home. The door is open. I am afraid." Mark put on a coat and went out. The street was wet. The small lamps gave soft light. He walked fast. The town was quiet. He reached number 9 in 5 minutes. Lucy stood at the door. Her face was pale. Her hands were dry and cold. "Show me," Mark said. Lucy opened the door. The flat was small and warm. A lamp was on in the kitchen. A cup of tea was on the table. The cup had cold tea. The chair was not in place. A coat lay on the floor near the door. "Mrs. Green is not here," Lucy said. "Her door is open. She does not answer. I called her many times. Nothing." Lucy spoke fast and small. Mark looked around. He saw a small blue book on the floor. The cover was old. It had no name on it. The book lay under a chair. A small page was on the floor, and a pen near it. The page had a letter and a time. The time was 10:10. Mark bent down. He took the book with one hand. He opened it. The writing was small and careful. The words were short. The first page had a date. The date was last week. The next pages had short notes. The notes were about food, walks, and a friend. Mark read a few lines. Then he stopped. One page was torn out. The torn page left a white line in the book. The blue book felt like a small house for a secret. At the window, rain had left a track. There were small marks on the sill. Mark looked out. The street was empty. The marks on the window looked like a wet hand. Mark put the book into his coat. He moved slow. He did not touch the cup. He saw no blood. He saw no fight. The flat was tidy. Everything looked like a quick leave. The door was open but not broken. Lucy said, she said she would meet a friend. She expected him at 10. At 10 she had tea and looked at the clock. After that, I do not know. "What friend?" Mark asked. Lucy thought for a long time. She did not say. She said only, "A man from the bus." Lucy looked at the floor with sad eyes. Mark nodded. He looked at the small clock on the kitchen wall. The clock had stopped. The hand stood on 10:10. The clock had a small crack. It was like the torn page in the book. Mark felt that the flat had a story that did not end. He left the flat and walked to the street. The rain had less water now. The steps on the stone were soft. Mark saw a small shoe print near the door. The shoe print was wet and small. It went to the gate and then to the path near the park. Mark followed the mark. Near the park, a light was on. A man sat on a bench. He was not old. He wore a dark coat. He looked at the river and smoked. The man had a small hat. Mark stopped a few steps away. Mark said, "Good morning. I am Mark Lane. I am a detective. Do you know Mrs. Green?" The man turned fast. He had dark eyes. He looked like a man with many nights and no rest. "Mrs. Green. I know her. I saw her a few hours ago. We talked. She left with a small bag. She was sad. She looked at the river. Then she took the bus. I saw the bus go." Mark felt a noise in his head. He asked, "Did she say where she would go? Did she say the name of the man?" The man looked down. He moved his foot. "No name," the man said. "She said only one thing. She said, 'I must go now. I will come back soon.' Then she left by the bus." Mark looked at the man's hands. One finger had a small white band. The man's hands were cold. Mark felt that the man knew more. He wanted to push, to ask. But he stopped. "What is your name?" Mark asked. "My name is Tom." Tom looked at the river and then at the sky. "I saw a car near the old bridge. The car stopped. A man with a blue scarf left the car and walked fast to the bus. He had no hat. He had long hands." Mark's heart beat fast. Blue scarf. Blue book. The word came to his head and stayed. Mark went back to the flat. He spoke with Lucy for a little more time. He looked again at the small blue book. He read the last line. The line said, "If I go, I leave the key in the box. If the river calls, I will go." The writing was weak but sure. Mark put the book in his pocket. He felt the blue cover against his hand. He knew that the book had a small fire inside. He knew that the torn page and the stopped clock were not only two small things. They were a path. Mark left the flat. He had a plan. He would call the bus company. He would find the man with the blue scarf. He would ask the driver about the time and the bus. He would look at the old bridge. He would look at the river. But in the dark he had a thought. Some people leave with no plan. Some people go away and do not want to be found. Some people hide from more than one thing. Mark walked to his office. The town was still. The rain had gone. The lamp by the door made a small circle of light. Mark sat at his desk and put the blue book on the wood. He looked at the clock in his room. The clock said 3:40. He turned the small lamp on and wrote one note. The note was short. Find the bus. Find the man with the blue scarf. Find the torn page. Mark folded the note and put it in his pocket. He made a cup of tea and drank. He felt the heat in his hand. He did not sleep. He looked at the book. The blue cover looked like a small sea under a dark sky. Then he took his hat and coat and left the office. He walked fast. He had a small light. He had a small hope. The night was big, and the town was small. The blue book was heavy in his coat. Chapter 2, The Bus Ticket. Morning came slow. The sky was pale. The streets were still wet from the night rain. Mark Lane sat at his small desk with a cup of hot tea. The blue book lay open in front of him. He looked at it for a long time. His eyes followed the torn edge. He touched the paper. It was dry now. Mark opened his old phone and called the bus office. The woman at the other end spoke fast but soft. "Yes, Detective Lane. We have records. What time did the lady travel?" Mark told her, "Around 10 last night. From the stop near the park." The woman said, "There were 3 buses at that time. Only one stopped at the park. It went to Greenhill, then to the city. There were few people. I can send you the driver's name." Mark thanked her. He wrote the name down, Peter Cole. He took his coat, locked his office, and went to the bus station. The bus station was not big. The roof was high, and a few people waited. Some had bags, some read newspapers. A small dog barked near the door. Mark walked to the office and showed his card. Peter Cole was tall and had kind eyes. His jacket was blue, and his voice was calm. "Yes, I remember that night," Peter said. "A woman came with a small bag. She looked sad but polite. She had a ticket to the city. She sat near the window. She spoke to no one." "Did she meet anyone?" Mark asked. Peter thought. "No. But when we stopped near the bridge, she looked outside. There was a man. He wore a blue scarf. He did not get on the bus, but she waved her hand at him. Then she turned away." Mark wrote everything down. He showed the blue book to Peter. Peter looked at it, then shook his head. "No, I have never seen it." Mark left the station. He walked to the bridge. The bridge crossed a quiet river. The water moved slow. The trees made shadows on the gray stone. There were marks of car tires near the side. The air was cold. Mark saw something shiny under the rail. He bent down and saw a bus ticket half in the mud. It was torn, but the number was still clear, 1154. He put the ticket into his pocket. It felt cold and small. He looked around again. There were footprints near the side. One set was large, one was small. Both went toward the water. Mark felt a small fear in his chest. He called the police station and asked for a search near the bridge. The officer said they would send 2 men. Mark waited. He watched the water. He thought about Mrs. Green. Who was she meeting? Why the torn page? Why the blue scarf? The sky turned gray. The river looked dark and deep. A voice called from behind. "Detective Lane." It was Tom, the man from the park. He looked tired. His coat was still wet. "I heard you were here. I found something." He held out a small metal key. The key was old and thin. On it was a small tag with the number 9B. Mark looked at it. "Where did you find it?" Tom said, "Near the bus stop. I walk there every morning." "It was in the grass." Mark nodded. He took the key. It was cold like the ticket. He looked at Tom. The man's eyes moved away. "Did you know Mrs. Green well?" Mark asked. Tom spoke slow. "We talked sometimes. She liked the river. She said the water made her calm. She said she had something to hide but did not say what." Mark put the key into his pocket. He thanked Tom and walked away. He went to number 9 again. Lucy opened the door. Her face was still pale, but her voice was stronger now. "I have something to show you," she said. She went to the kitchen and took a small box from a shelf. The box was wood, dark and old. There was dust on it. It had a small lock. "This was hers," Lucy said. "She told me to keep it safe. She said I should open it only if something happened." Mark took the key from his pocket. The number on the key was the same as on the box, 9B. The key turned easily. Inside the box was a letter and a photo. The photo showed Mrs. Green and a man with a blue scarf. The man was smiling, but his eyes were cold. The letter said only a few words. "If I disappear, he is near. Do not trust the man with the blue scarf." Mark read the words again and again. The handwriting was the same as in the blue book. He felt the air turn heavy. He looked at Lucy. "Do you know who this man is?" Mark asked. Lucy shook her head. "No. She never said his name. But sometimes a car waited near the house at night. I saw the lights through my window." Mark closed the box. He stood by the window. The rain had started again, soft and slow. He looked at the street. A man in a blue scarf walked past and did not look up. Mark's hand went to his coat pocket. He felt the ticket, the key, and the blue book. 3 small things, one big mystery. He turned to Lucy. "Lock your door tonight. Keep the lights on. If you see that man again, call me." Lucy nodded, her face white. Mark left the house. The rain made small circles on the ground. He walked to his office. He took the photo from the box and placed it next to the blue book. 2 things that told one story. He wrote in his notebook. Find the man in the photo. Check the car near the bridge. The river may hide more than water. He sat back. The sound of rain filled the room. His tea was cold. He looked at the blue book again. The torn page was still missing, but now he knew it might not be lost. Someone could have taken it. Outside, a shadow moved by the window. Mark turned, but the street was empty. The night came again, and the blue book waited. Chapter 3: The River Secret. The next morning was bright but cold. The sun came up behind thin clouds. Mark Lane did not sleep much. He sat by the window, thinking about the blue book, the photo, and the letter. The face of the man with the blue scarf stayed in his mind. He went to the police office early. Officer Dean met him there. Dean was young and serious. He had short brown hair and clear eyes. "We found something near the bridge," Dean said. "It may help." They walked together to the bridge. The air smelled of water and old stone. Near the river bank, 2 policemen stood by a small wooden box. It was wet and dirty. One side was broken. Mark bent down and looked inside. There were papers, a piece of cloth, and a small silver ring. The ring had a name inside, T. Green. "Tom Green," Mark said softly. "So she was married." Dean nodded. "But no one in town knows her as Mrs. Green with a husband. She always said she lived alone." Mark held the ring in his hand. It was light but cold. He looked at the papers, most were wet, but one page had writing still clear. The words were short and strong. "The river knows. The truth is under the bridge." Mark felt a cold line run down his back. He turned to Dean. We must check the river. They called the divers. 2 hours later, men in dark suits went into the water. The town people came to watch. Lucy stood near a tree, her coat tight around her shoulders. Tom was there too, his face pale. After a while, one of the divers shouted. They pulled something from the water, a small brown bag. It was tied with a string. Inside were books, papers, and one old photo. The photo showed the same man again, the man with the blue scarf, but this time he was standing beside Tom. Mark's eyes went wide. He looked at Tom. You know him, don't you? Tom's mouth opened, but no sound came. Then he said, yes. He is my brother. The air went still. Lucy stepped back. Dean looked at Mark, surprised. Your brother? Mark asked. Why did you not tell me? Tom rubbed his face. Because I did not think it mattered. We are not close. We worked together once, long ago. He left the town. He said he would never come back. But 2 weeks ago, I saw him again, near the park. He said he wanted to meet someone quietly. He asked me not to tell anyone. Mark felt anger and pity at the same time. That someone was Mrs. Green. What did he want from her? Tom looked away. Money, I think. He lost his job. He needed help. She said she would give him something if he came at 10. Mark thought of the clock in Mrs. Green's flat. It had stopped at 10:10. The time of the meeting. What happened then? Mark asked. Tom shook his head. I don't know. I waited near the park. I saw them talk near the bus stop. Then she left. He followed her to the bridge. After that, I did not see them again. Mark turned to the river. The water moved slowly, like it was hiding words. He said, we must find your brother. What is his name? Tom's voice was quiet. David. David Green. Mark looked at Dean. Send his photo to all police stations. Tell them to look for a man with a blue scarf. They left the bridge. Mark went back to his office. He placed the silver ring beside the blue book. Now 2 names were clear, Tom and David. Brothers. 1 missing woman. 1 blue scarf. 1 secret under the bridge. He opened the book again. Between 2 pages, something small fell out. It was a piece of paper, thin as air. It said, 10:10, meet D by the river. Bring the letter. Mark sat back. The blue book still had things to say. He took the phone and called Lucy. Did Mrs. Green ever talk about a letter? Lucy said, yes. She said she had one that could change everything. She said she was afraid to send it. Did she show it to you? No. But she said it was about her past, about something she could not forget. Mark hung up. He felt a mix of fear and curiosity. He thought of the missing torn page. Maybe it was the letter. Maybe David had it. The phone rang again. It was Dean. We found something else. The divers saw a second car key in the water. The car is parked behind the old mill. The engine is cold, but the door is open. Mark took his hat and went to the old mill. The building was dark and broken. Birds flew from the roof when he came near. The car was old, silver, with mud on the tires. Inside, on the seat, lay a scarf, blue, wet, and torn. Mark's heart beat fast. On the floor, under the seat, was a small leather wallet. Inside was a driver's card, David Green. Mark looked toward the river. The sound of water was soft but deep. Somewhere under that sound was the truth. He took the scarf and put it in a bag. Then he wrote in his notebook. 1. David is alive, or was here last night. 2. The letter is still missing. 3. The river is not done speaking. The wind moved through the grass. The sun went behind the clouds. Mark felt the first real piece of the truth, but he also knew it was only the beginning. He looked once more at the river, calm but hiding secrets. Then he turned and walked back to town. The case was far from over. Chapter 4: The Missing Letter. The day was cold, and a strong wind came from the hills. The sky was gray, and the town looked smaller than before. Mark Lane walked to his office with slow steps. The case was growing like a dark tree with many branches, and every branch had a secret. He sat at his desk, opened his notebook, and read his notes again. The blue book, the ring, the scarf, the two brothers, and the missing letter, they were all small parts of one story. But how did they fit together? He opened the blue book once more. The paper smelled of old tea and rain. He ran his fingers over the torn page and tried to imagine what was written there. Maybe it was the letter. Maybe it told the truth that everyone tried to hide. Mark decided to visit Tom again. He wanted to hear more about his brother. Tom lived near the river in a small red house with green windows. The place was quiet. Only the sound of water and the cry of birds filled the air. Tom opened the door slowly. His eyes were red, and his hands shook a little. "Detective Lane," he said. "Did you find him?" "Not yet," Mark said. "But I found his scarf and his wallet. We know he was near the mill last night." Tom looked down. "Then something bad happened," he whispered. "David was never a bad man, but he made bad choices. He was in trouble." "What kind of trouble?" Mark asked. Tom sighed. "Money. He borrowed money from the wrong people. He said Mrs. Green could help him. He said she had something valuable, a letter, maybe, or a paper from her past." Mark's eyes moved to the river outside the window. The water ran dark and quick. "Did he tell you what the letter was about?" Tom shook his head. "No. Only that it was something that could hurt someone important. He said he could use it to make things right." Mark nodded slowly. "Or to make money." Tom said nothing. His silence was answer enough. Mark left the house and went to the police station. Officer Dean was there, reading reports. "Any sign of David?" Mark asked. "Not yet," Dean said. "But we found a car near the old mill with fingerprints. One of them matches David Green. Another print is unknown. We sent it for a check." Mark looked at the report. "And the river?" "Nothing new," Dean said. "But the divers will go again tomorrow." Mark thanked him and walked out. He went to the cafe near the bridge, where he could see the water. He ordered tea and opened the blue book again. A woman at the next table looked at him and smiled politely. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Is that a blue book? I think I've seen one like it before." Mark looked up. The woman was about 40, with kind eyes and a small silver cross around her neck. "Where did you see it?" he asked. "At the post office," she said. "Mrs. Green came there last week. She sent a letter, and she had that book in her hand. She asked if the letter would reach the city fast." Mark's heart beat faster. "Do you remember where she sent it?" The woman thought for a moment. "Yes, to a lawyer. The name was Mr. Blake. I remember because she looked worried when she wrote it." "Thank you," Mark said quickly. He left some coins on the table and hurried to the post office. The post office was small and smelled of paper and dust. The clerk checked the records and found the name. "Yes," he said. "A letter was sent to Mr. John Blake in the city. But it was never picked up. It came back 2 days ago." Mark's heart jumped. "Do you still have it?" The clerk nodded and handed him a small brown envelope. The name Mr. John Blake was written in neat letters. The sender's name was M. Green. The seal was broken, maybe by the postman when it was returned. Mark opened it carefully. Inside was a single folded paper. The handwriting was the same as in the blue book. It said, "To Mr. John Blake. If anything happens to me, please keep this safe. The man named David Green is not who he says he is. He is not my husband. He took something from me. He knows about the river. He knows the truth." Mark read the words twice. His mind turned fast. David was not her husband. Then who was he? And what did he take from her? He left the post office and walked to the park. The wind pushed leaves across the path. He called Dean. Find out everything about David Green, where he worked, who his friends were, and what he did before he came back to town. Dean said, "I'm on it." Mark sat on a bench and thought. The letter said that David knew something about the river. The ring with the name T. Green, maybe Tom was her real husband. Or maybe someone else had that name. The truth seemed close but still hidden under water. As he sat, a man in a gray coat stopped near the gate. He looked around and then walked toward the bridge. His walk was slow, careful. Mark's eyes followed him. Something about the man felt wrong. He stood up and followed at a distance. The man stopped near the river and threw something into the water, a small piece of paper. Then he turned and saw Mark. For a moment their eyes met. The man turned and ran. "Stop!" Mark shouted. He ran after him, but the man was quick. They ran through the park, across the street, and into the narrow lanes behind the old houses. The man dropped his hat, and Mark saw his hair, dark and short, and a small scar on his neck. He turned the corner, but the man was gone. Only the sound of steps fading away. Mark stopped, breathing hard. He picked up the hat. Inside was a small tag with the name D. Green. Mark walked back to the river. The water moved slowly again, calm after the chase. He looked down at the place where the man had thrown the paper. The current had already taken it away. He whispered to himself, "The river knows. The truth is under the bridge." Then he took his notebook and wrote, 1. The letter proves David lied. 2. He is still in town. 3. The river hides more than we think. The sky grew darker. The first drops of rain began to fall again. Mark put the hat in his coat and walked back toward the lights of the town, knowing that the night would bring more answers, or more danger. Chapter 5, Shadows by the Bridge. The night came early. Heavy clouds hid the moon, and the town lights made long shadows on the wet ground. Mark Lane walked through the empty streets with his coat tight around him. The blue book was in his pocket, and the hat marked D. Green was in his hand. The air smelled of rain and river. He stopped at the bridge. The water below moved dark and slow. Somewhere under that quiet surface was the truth. Mark leaned on the cold stone rail and thought about the letter, the lies, and the brothers. He heard steps behind him. Slow, careful steps. He turned. A man stood near the lamp, tall, thin, with a scarf around his neck. The scarf was blue. "David Green," Mark said softly. The man smiled. "Detective Lane. I knew you would come here." Mark's voice was calm. "Mrs. Green is missing. Her letter says you lied about who you are. What do you know about her?" David's eyes moved like dark water. "She was a kind woman. But she learned too much. She found something that was not hers." "What did she find?" Mark asked. David stepped closer. The light touched his face. The scar on his neck shone like a white line. "A letter," he said. "One she was never meant to read." Mark took a slow breath. "You mean the letter she sent to the lawyer?" David's smile faded. "So you found it. Then you know what it said." "It said that you took something from her," Mark said. "What was it?" David looked down at the water. His voice grew low. "Her trust. Her peace. Maybe her life. But I did not mean to hurt her." Mark's hands closed into fists. "Where is she, David?" David's face went pale. "I told her to meet me by the river. I wanted to take back the letter before she sent it. But she ran. She slipped on the wet stone. I tried to help her. The water took her." Mark's heart hit hard. "You let her drown." "No." David shouted. "I tried to pull her out. I called for help. No one came. The river was fast. When I came back, she was gone. I waited, but I couldn't stay. I was afraid. The letter would make me look guilty." Mark looked into his eyes. They were full of fear, and maybe truth. The sound of rain grew louder. The river below whispered and hissed. "You left your scarf and your wallet," Mark said. "You wanted us to think you were gone too." David nodded. "I wanted to disappear. But you found me." Mark stepped closer. "You need to come with me. You must tell the police everything." David shook his head. "I can't. They won't believe me. I saw something else that night. Someone was there, another man. He was watching from the bridge. He followed her first. I think he pushed her." Mark's eyes widened. "Who?" David looked past him. "I don't know. But I saw his shoes. Brown, old, with a cut on the side. The same shoes Tom wears." Mark froze. "Tom?" David nodded. "Yes. My brother. He wanted the same thing I did. The letter. He said it could fix everything. But when she said no, he became angry. The wind moved hard across the bridge. Mark's mind raced. Could Tom have lied to him all this time? Before he could speak, a sound came from the dark, quick steps, heavy breathing. Mark turned. A shadow moved near the trees. A man ran toward them. The light hit his face for a second. It was Tom. David. Tom shouted. "Don't talk to him." Mark stepped between them. "Stop. Both of you." Tom didn't stop. He reached for his brother's arm, pulling him back from the rail. "You'll ruin us," he shouted. "You should have stayed quiet." David tried to free himself. "She's gone, Tom. It's over." Tom's eyes burned. "No. It's not over until you stop talking." Mark reached for them, but Tom pushed David hard. David stumbled, his foot slipped on the wet stone, and he fell toward the edge. Mark caught his coat, pulling with all his strength. Rain hit his face, and his arm shook. Tom pulled too, shouting, "Let him go." "Enough!" Mark shouted back. He pulled again and dragged David away from the edge. They all fell to the ground, breathing hard. Tom tried to run, but Mark stood up first and blocked his way. "It's over, Tom." Tom looked at the river, then at Mark. His voice was cold. "You think you know the truth. You don't. The river keeps secrets better than any man." Then he turned and ran into the dark woods. Mark shouted to David, "Stay here." He ran after Tom, but the night was thick and wet. Trees moved like ghosts in the wind. Tom's steps faded into the sound of rain. Mark stopped. The dark swallowed everything. He went back to the bridge. David sat on the ground, shaking. "He'll come back," Mark said. "He can't hide forever." David looked up, tears mixing with rain. "He didn't mean to kill her. He just wanted the letter." Mark didn't answer. He looked at the river again. The black water moved like it was alive. He thought of Mrs. Green, of her quiet home, of the cup of tea, the stopped clock, and the torn page. The case was almost complete, but one question still floated in his mind. What truth was so dangerous that two brothers would destroy their lives for it? He took his notebook and wrote. 1. David claims Tom pushed her. 2. Tom is running. 3. The letter is the key. 4. The river hides the end. Mark looked at the water one last time. "Tomorrow," he said softly. "Tomorrow we end this." He turned and walked into the rain, leaving the bridge behind, the river whispering secrets in the dark. Chapter 6: The River's Truth. Morning came gray and cold. The rain had stopped, but the streets were wet and quiet. Mark Lane walked to the police station with heavy steps. David Green was waiting inside, his hands shaking, his eyes red from no sleep. Tom Green was still missing. Mark sat across from David. "You did the right thing by staying," he said. "We'll find him." David nodded weakly. "He won't run far. He loved her once, you know. Mrs. Green. Before she married our uncle. He wanted her to leave with him. She said no." Mark looked at him in silence. "So the letter was about that?" David shook his head. No. It was worse. She found out that the business, the family company, was built on stolen land. If she told the truth, we would lose everything. Tom wanted to stop her. I wanted to stop him. The clock on the wall ticked slowly. Mark wrote notes, line by line. The story was now almost complete. A policeman opened the door. "Sir," he said. "They found something by the river." Mark stood up. He and David followed the man through the streets to the bridge. The river looked calm, but the water was dark as oil. Two men stood by the bank, pulling something with a rope. It was a coat. Then a body. Tom Green. David made a sound between a cry and a whisper. "No," he fell to his knees, his face pale. "He was my brother. He didn't deserve this." Mark watched quietly. There were no wounds, no signs of a fight. Only the river's mark, the same as before. Later that day, Mark stood alone by the bridge. He looked at the cold water and thought of the letter, the brothers, and Mrs. Green. He had read the letter again. It was clear now, she had written that she would tell the truth, even if it broke every bond she had. She never got the chance. David had been taken to the hospital. He was safe, but broken inside. The company was now closed, the land under investigation. Justice would come, but slowly. Mark wrote his last note in the small brown book. Case closed. Mrs. Green wanted to tell the truth. Tom tried to stop her. The river took them both. David lost everything, but perhaps found peace. He closed the notebook and looked once more at the dark, moving water. The river whispered as if it spoke to him. Somewhere under that surface lay the letter's last secret, one that no one would ever read. Mark turned away. His coat moved with the wind, and the bridge disappeared behind the mist. The rain began again, soft and endless, washing the streets clean, but not the memory. The end.